Now we're on Daf Chav Ches Amid Beis, and the Brisa sort of restricts its statement she'ein mitameh misafek b'tumas shrotzim, that although in the case of tumas sheretz b'shayach we're going to say sveiko tami, but that's only under certain restricted conditions. Mimakom shabasa, because we learn it from Safek Tuma in the case of Sotah. And Umas Sotah, Rishus HaYachid, Af Sheretz Rishus HaYachid, is therefore the din of Safek Evadai in Tuma of Sheretz is going to be limited to the case of Rishus HaYachid, just like Sotah is Rishus HaYachid, because it's only her and him. If to be a third person, and she was together with two men, that would be considered like a Rishus HaRabim. In other words, there would be no din of stira to generate an Israel Baila. And the Gemara Nazir Adaf Nun Zayin establishes that Rishus HaYachid means when there are only two. And in Safek Sotah, Shenistera Habol Vadiv Eles, there are two. If on the other hand there would be three, that would not be considered Rishus HaYachid. And as Machlokas, the Ram and the Ravid in Perek Zayin Milchas Nizirus Halacha says Zayin, do we need that these three be b'maimod echad? The Rambam says, if you have more than two, even if the third person sees from outside, that's already a Rishus HaRabim. Whereas the Ravid says, Ein Safek Nechshav Rishus HaRabim. When do we consider the three people? They're all standing together. The Yerushalmi says that according to Rabbi Yossi, a Baal could be Makanila Mishnayim from two different people or more than Shnayim, but the steer itself has to be only with one of them, and then she's Asur L'Baila. The Achronim asked the following question. The Gemara says in Nazir that Shlosha Nechshavim Rishus HaRabim. So how can you tell me that if the Baal was Makaniha from Shnayim, Nistra Imam, he Asur L'Baila? That doesn't make any sense because it's already Rishus HaRabim. Now, Mas Sotah Dover Sheyesh Bo Das Lishoel, in the case of Sotah, whether she was Nitma or not, she can speak, she can ask the question. Is Af Sheretz Al Dover Sheyesh Bo Das Lishoel. That there's a possibility of responding whether it was tummy or not tummy. Like, for example, if you have an Adam has a chash that he was Nitma, you can ask him whether he was no ger b'tumah, he was not no ger b'tumah. And if he doesn't know, then it becomes a safek tumah, which is considered Rishus HaYachid kivada, or kelim or ochlim that were in his hand, and there was a safek if they became tummy while they were in his hand. That's called yesh bo das lishol. Because the time the latest safek, when the kelim was still biyado, and he's got das, he can answer whether it became tummy or not. But if the safek was generated that maybe he touched the sheretz, or maybe the sheretz came in contact with Ochlin or Kalim, and then not the Yad HaAdam, then there's no din of Tumah, because the entire din of Tumah, that Sveiko Tummy, is derived in Xeris HaKosim from Sotah, and you can't be Machmir in Sotah more than giving machmir in the nidon that's derived from sotah, meaning in tuma, more than sotah itself. Mikan omru dover sheish bo das lishol b'shayachid sveikot tameh, ram sveikotar. So if it's a person and there was a latest hasafik, and it's now a safik b'shayachid, then sveikot tameh. But if it's she'ein bo das lishol, for example, he finds his sheretz near taros, and he doesn't know if the sheretz came in contact with the taros. The suffix is nolad when the taros were menachas al karka, and there's no das to answer any questions here, whether there was a maga with the sheretz or not, is then it doesn't matter at all where the suffix is bevish sayachid, bevish sarab, sveikotar. So we derive from Sotah that because it's yesh lo das lishol, therefore she's tmeah. But if it was ein bo das lishol, she would not become tmeah. Hossa says that there's some sort of halacha or gzeres hakosu to teach us that suffix tum rishus rabim is to be derived from Sotah, that she's tahora. And even though we don't l'chora need such halacha because we should go basach hazaka like in a kol dinei Torah, but nevertheless we would have said that there's gzeres hakasuv in tumas Sotah that we don't rely in any suffix on her cheskes tara. So that the din in suffix that universally applies, that holchem basach hazaka, does not apply in the case of Sotah. And we're going to be tame b'suffix tuma b'chol makom. Now, there's halacha l'vosh we've seen at Rishus HaRabim, we are mamid suffix tumal cheskasa. So we don't derive from this halacha to be mitar Rishus HaRabim unless there is a cheskes tara. But Tosas and Kulin on Daf Tesamid Beis and Nida Daf Beis writes that from Sotah we derive to be mitar a suffix to Rishus HaRabim even in a place where there's no cheskes tara, and that's the Xeris Akosav to mitar misafik. So once again, if we find the sheret samuch l'taros, we don't know if there was a maga, the suffix was nolad when the taros were munachas agabi karka. There's no das l'shol. Is then beimish saram beimish siyachid sveikotam. Oh, sveikotam. The Gemara now goes back to that brisa that we had on Daf Ibn Aleph, where all of a sudden Rabbi Shmuel comes, with a discussion about Nisuin when Rabbi Akiva was talking about kahuna and specifically eating truma. So the Gemara asked Rabbi Shmuel, what did he respond to Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva said that for the fact that the Torah repeats tuma twice and thrice, we derive that a sotah shenistera is asur lechel b'truma umahadale iu, and Rabbi Shmuel responds to him by speaking about the isur sotah asur linasi lakuna if her husband dies. And furthermore, we want to ask Rabbi Akiva, kahuna minole. How does he know that in event that her husband dies, she's asur l'kohen? And if you'll say that he's a sotah l'kuna lo tzricha kra, we derive it from svara. And here we turn to Daf Chav Tes. Shari Asa Basafik Zona Ki Zona Vadois, and she's Asura Baila. So we know Memela that she's Asura Lechel Betruma because the Zona is Asura Lekohen, and she can't marry a Kohen. It says Isha Zona V'chalolo Yikachu, Parshas Emor. And Gemara rejects it. We shouldn't say this because the Svar is Nechona. It's a correct svara to generate an Isra Achilas Truma Namilo Tiboy Kro. We don't need a puzzle. Shariasa Basafe Zona Kizona. So we know that she's Asur B'Truma because an Eishes Isha Zinsa becomes Asur L'Truma based on the puzzle. Uvas Kohen Ki Sia L'Ish Zar He Bisruma Asakoshim Lo Tochel. So we have therefore no choice but we cannot derive the Isser Kahuna and Truma from the Isser Sotah L'Baila. And therefore, Minayin Rabbi Akiva, how does Rabbi Akiva know Sotah Asura Lekahuna? Explain why the Gemara comes to the conclusion that we cannot derive these kahuna and truma from these Sotah Labaila. Yesh Lomer Shadafka Gabi Isur Labaila of Mira Torah. Kevan Sheyesh Ba Misas Bezdin. Again, the Isur Labaila is only a lav, but there's theoretically within the context of a bias ish a misas bezdin. Mashenkin gabi achilas truma the isur achilas truma linasi lekuna mitin baskoin kisiel ishar he betrumas kadosh lo sochal, or the isur of a zona lekoin that says isha zona v'chalolo yikachu, that's maximum a lav. Is therefore in those cases of the isur lav of achilas truma linasi lekuna is namid esa isha al chezka tashu muteres. And the Achronim are trying to clarify, what does this mean? The isur zona labaila is only an isur lav, there's no misa. But he says, Kevon sheroim shezona hi yesh loko shetarbe od b'niyuf. Then it says, Mechayeves is called boim olev avone shesishi b'misa. So there's a possibility here of misa through gilui arayas. Al kain tzivsa shigarsheno v'lo techayev acher v'misa. That's why the Torah wanted to break up this marriage. And again, this is a question that we leave the daf with, why don't we derive the Isur L'Truma L'Kuhuna from the Isur L'Bayil? And we're up to Ella Li Rabbi Akiva.